Hey everyone, and welcome to The Difference, a podcast highlighting leaders who are making a difference in their teams, stores, and their communities. I'm Alexis Whaley.
And I'm Drew Holler.
Hey Drew, so how are you today?
I'm great.
Good.
We have a great guest on today, Candace.
Yes.
And Candace won store manager of the year a few weeks ago at YBM. So we thought it was important to get her on here. She runs a store in Vegas and has been there from the opening of the store, I believe. Mm-hmm. But we're going to have a good conversation. We're going to talk about her routines, kind of her tips and tricks of how you go from running the store and then becoming store manager of the year. When you're the best at something, anything, it doesn't just happen by chance. And when we talk to Candace, that's clearly the case. She puts quality time and effort into what she does. So anyways, I'm anxious to everybody to hear the conversation. It's I think going to be a good one.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go ahead and get into it.
All right, let's go. So you're energized and feeling great after you got married a month ago. You were in Disney World last week. Did you hit the ground running coming back, or was it a little bit of a transition coming back into the store?
No, my team's amazing. So they did an amazing job. We're right in the middle of 4 weeks into a remodel. So
oh my.
They've had their hands full, but they transitioned well and controlling what they can control at this point.
How many associates do you have?
About 300, about 310. It goes back and forth.
Got it. So you're going through a remodel. Anything special in the remodel you're getting, or?
Well, the store's not even 4 years old. We go 4 years in November. So we still fairly look like a new store. So we're getting our bathrooms, even though they were brand new, are getting brand new bathrooms. We already had concrete, but they're taking all the rest of the laminate flooring and apparel. And we're getting the new Vision Center 2.0. So the one with the higher end frames and that kind of stuff. So they're just adding some of that, the new electronics. We had the electronics of the future, but now we're getting the new one. So just stuff like that. They're updating. So it's really exciting.
That's great. Good for you. You know, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, and first of all, congratulations on Store Manager of the Year.
Thank you.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
How did you feel personally? Obviously, you're happy for your team and you're happy that, you know, the total store got recognized, but for you as a long-term associate and a leader.
I was proud, like just so proud that, you know, this team has persevered. I mean, it was tough this last year and, you know, it's tough a lot of times, but just knowing that, you know, the direction I gave this team this last 12 months, that they, you know, followed through and they stayed consistent and they stayed true to what they were here for, and that we put on that name badge every day to be Walmart associates, whether we're an hourly or a salaried member of management, and that we are committed to, you know, doing what it takes. And so it's just extremely proud, just knowing that, you know, they believed in me. My supervisors believed in me. Brad and Paul believed in me, and that they knew that, you know, the store had really, truly worked hard. And I know a lot of stores last year worked hard, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into what we dealt with during, you know, the height of the pandemic. But that this team, you know, really, I was just so proud. Just, I can't even tell you, it still gives me butterflies knowing that, you know, that feeling.
Any validation to you as an individual of the work that you've put in, and maybe even some people have said maybe you couldn't do this. Like there's all those things that go through your head as a leader, and then to get that validation.
Well, I'm going in my 10th year of being a store manager of my 21 years. So just knowing that every year that I've been in this role, whether I've this is my fourth store, that I've built foundations and processes in my leadership that are true, like they work. And I believe in being a true adapter of change with the company instead of fighting through it like some people do. And, you know, sometimes I can be outspoken or I, you know, say my feelings too much. My boss always says, but it's because I truly care. And knowing that now I brought this home to Vegas and to this store, that everybody realizes that my passion is there and it's all for the good of the company.
That's good. Good for you.
Yeah.
On that note, becoming a store of the year doesn't happen by chance. It's not luck. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it. If you don't mind, I'd like to kind of dig into that a little bit. So, what's your morning routine look like? How do you enter the store? Maybe even what do you do before you even get to the store? But for those maybe even new store managers that want to be store manager of the year someday, let's kind of just talk through some of those tips and tricks and routines that you go through. But start like the beginning of the day, even maybe before you walk into the store. What's your mindset? And then we'll kind of walk through your day a little bit.
Okay, so my day starts before I even get to the store. When I get up, I'm focused on what are my metrics for the day? What does my trucks look like? What does my staffing look like? What does my management staffing look like? So I have all that mentally in my head before I even get moving. Then I start communicating with my store immediately as I'm getting ready. How was your night? What were your opportunities? So I kind of have an understanding of, hey, what were their opportunities? What were they good? Did they feel like they had a good night? My team's very open about, you have a bad night, just call it out. We can't fix something. I always say, and everything's not going to be roses and butterflies in retail. So you have to actually say, if you had a bad night, you had a bad night. We can fix it and we can brush off and pick up and keep moving. So I'll have that. A lot of times I can guide my team like, hey, do this or that based on what I think, based on what they're saying. So I have all that mentally scripted in my head with them and communicating back and forth. So then by the time I get here, my team knows I should never have any surprises. So then I'll walk in, usually do a quick racetrack tour, put my stuff down. I'll glance at like the front page of the wire just to make sure there's not any late amp tasks or anything that urgently needs my attention. Grab my TC, and then I immediately go from the front to the back, and I'll walk the back room with either my stocking one lead or my stocking one coach and overnight leads if they're still here. And we'll just kind of assess what does the freight flow look like in the back room. So then when I'm on the floor, I kind of have an idea of, hey, what does the back room look like? What does the floor look like? And my team always knows the floor needs to be clean label zoned. If we had a bad night, that's not where the bad night shows. We get it zoned and then we can pick up from there. Then I also follow up on processes. So one of the things I do is I micromanage process. What the company expects us to do, capping, overstock audits, those type of things. Those are the things that I'll micromanage and make sure that they're consistent. So when my cap stocking one team comes in, they're going right to the process. They're not having to work overstock or zone the store. Sometimes they do, but that I really micromanage that. And then I go from there straight up to the fresh areas. That's where I communicate and walk with my fresh teams. I walk with the hourlies, the leads, whoever's there, we'll walk through, we'll talk through, and then I'll just I call it a wandering tour. I don't have my boss, my market manager has a very strict routine, and I kind of have that routine already, and I have in many stores, but I also modify it where you're wandering up and down counters, just looking at what is the pulse of the store? What does it look like? Randomly scanning. Giving direction, following up on team leads on where their direction is, what direction they've given for the day. And I just kind of walk around. I say good morning to everybody I see. I'm very passionate about acknowledging the associates and acknowledging them by their name. So I'll say, good morning and whatever their name is, so they feel that connection. And I'll just walk all the way around, back and forth. And I just kind of go back all areas of the store. As I'm communicating on the radio with the leads, with anybody that has the backroom team, hey, whatever. And we're constantly communicating and following up. And then I'm through the whole store. Sometimes I get through the store by 9:00, and sometimes just depending on how much time I stop and spend, giving my associates the attention that they need, or course correcting behavior, or having somebody do something, I could get done by 9:30, 10. And then from there, it's really just a time for me to, shape the rest of the day for my team. But most of them, I don't have to come in and tell them what they have to do. The things I feel like I'm the nitpicker. I'm there to nitpick all the little things that they didn't catch. Because I always say they need to see it before their boss sees it. They need to see it before my lead sees it. The lead needs to see it before I see it. I need to see it before my market manager sees it. So I'm there to just nitpick the little things, racks not zoned by size, just those kind of things. But most of the time there's already direction been given and everybody's marching forward. And very rarely do I have to come in and change or course correct anything. It's more of just adding additional things to people's plates as I'm walking through the store. So that's my morning routine, and I'm pretty structured. My team already knows, like, if I don't text one of them in the morning, I get the, hey, I'm here. I didn't get a good morning. And so they all know that that's something I'm passionate about, and we can't fix what we don't know is broken, and we can't get everybody on the right path if we're, trying to say things are right that aren't right.
Candace, do you feel like you tour your team leads? Do you let them tour you sometimes?
It's a combination of both.
Yeah.
A lot of times, what are they working on? What are their focus? But sometimes, like, I can go in there and today my seasonal team leads off and she's already given direction and focus to her team in there. So I kind of see that where then I'm just following up for her. I'm kind of that, hey, did you see your direction that's given by Man and your note app? And yes. And then I can kind of just either add to it. So I'm not changing their direction, or I'm not pulling somebody off unless it's critical, and then I understand where they're at. So it's kind of a combination, but we've done that. We've been touring all the way down to the hourly associate ever since the store opened. So for us to switch to teaming, it was easy. I can walk over to produce right now. My team leads off, but every single one of those associates will be like, hey, what do you need us to do? Like, if there's any direction, because they're used to that. And they take that ownership, and they have well before teaming. So the associates are used to that mentality. It just was changing their names and changing a little bit more of their structure, but that part of touring was, all the way down. Some people are afraid to, they get the, I only supervise or I only give one level down. I direct and give direction to my leads and my coaches, but I'm not afraid to have conversations with everyone all the way down about what needs to happen or course correcting if needed. And these guys know it. And that's why I think a lot of time they take more ownership, because they're used to it.
That's right.
They're not afraid that I'm going to give them direction, or, they take the direction, or a lot of times they've learned the direction. They already know that's the note, and they're already executing it.
Yeah, it's, you have 300, you said 310 associates. It's how do you get all 300 to feel empowered to make decisions and to run a piece of the business. That's what makes a successful store. If you only have you and a handful of coaches that feel that way, you're outnumbered, right? You're a handful with 300 other people. And so how do you get all associates to feel that way? And by the way, their associate experience will go through the roof, right? When they feel like they're part of that team, they feel like they own something and feel like they have even conversation with you as a store manager. That's how you have an engaged building and engaged workforce for sure.
Absolutely.
So how about the end of the day? So you kind of talked about, your morning routine, and that feels like it's probably, it's kind of like working out, right? You're doing it every single day. You want to have a very clear way of doing things. It's people understand it. They know what's expected. You're not cutting them off guard, and you kind of get in that routine. So at the end of the day, do you have any type of routine or end of the day routine that you have before you leave the store?
So the routine for us in the store starts at 1:00. We have our planning meeting, and we're all back there. We discuss, the day, what's happening, what the second and third shift should look like. So we're all on the same page, whether you're leaving at 5 or staying till 8, or you're coming in to, close the store. Everyone's on the same page, and we start from there. And then the kickoff with stocking 2 is extremely important. I think a store, in my opinion, is broken if it's broken on second shift. Second shift starts the process. And if you're having a hiccup there, you're going to have a hiccup all the way through your first shift of your next day. So I think that's where it starts. And then we kick off that meeting, and then all the managers will disperse, but then I'll go to the back room with the stocking 1 and stocking 2 leads and coaches if they're here. We sign off orders. We do a lot of the clerical stuff in the back, and then we start processing a game plan additional to, hey, this is what it needs to look like tonight. This is what your staffing looks like, and kind of working through with those team leads and the ownership of it, whether it's, doing backloads or pushing extra freight out. We have that in mind. And then that's just, then the next 2 or 3 hours after that, it's just touring, just following up on zone and preparing for the evening with the closing managers.
That's good. Yeah. In a book that I read, talks about discipline equals freedom, right? So when you have these discipline routines at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, like you described, that gives you the freedom to do other things, right? And that's when the store manager role becomes really fun, is when you have headspace and slack in your day where you get to do other things. The only way you get that headspace and that slack in any store, any operation, you can look at a distribution center, a store, or even if you're running a team at the home office, is having those routines and disciplines on a daily basis, because that gives you slack and that gives you the headspace to do the things that put icing on the cake. Where we sometimes struggle is we try to put the icing on the cake without the disciplines and without the routines, and we find ourselves, icing a cake that's not baked, right?
Yep.
And,
teams
we
have
see
to
that a
be
lot.
consistent. And if they're not consistent, then they don't know. Like I could come in and not even tour, and my team is going to they already know what they should be doing. It's the nitpicking things that I'll point out. I always tell like my peers, and people ask me like, how are you so successful? Why do you not feel stressed sometimes? Because I'm not fighting fires with fires. Like if we have extra freight, we got to stand back, analyze it, figure it out, not just, and keeping everybody consistent. My team will be on their routines, and we don't have to like, oh, the store's not zoned, or pull from here, or pull from there. And then they miss the core part of it. It's the processes are driven based on consistency. And then I've had a conversation with some of my peers lately about micromanaging, what I micromanage as a store manager versus what some of them are micromanaging. Like I don't micromanage things like TCs or, supply orders. I put somebody in charge of it, and I empower them to take it from there. And I'll micromanage the things that I know will keep the wheels on the bus or the store running, which is the processes of the store, and all that other stuff that they stress about, I don't stress about, because my team, there's somebody that owns it and they're consistent in executing it.
Yeah. Sometimes we want to say, I work really hard, and hard is, physical work, or you're spending a lot of time. What I've found is what's actually hard is being disciplined. That's what's hard. It's hard doing the same thing every day and doing it to the best of your ability. It's hard to keep everybody on track in a routine way. That's a struggle, because humans typically don't bend that. We don't bend that way, right? None of us like to be put into a routine. But in doing that, you create headspace to work on the art of things, and it lowers your stress level, and you're able to see the whole playing field and make decisions. So I think it's really key. And what we find in high-performing store managers is exactly how you describe. Is there is a set routine. They are disciplined in the morning, and they're disciplined in the evening, and their whole team knows that. And it's Groundhog Day. It's okay to have Groundhog Day. That's kind of what you want. And what you have is then you have the fun stuff on top of that. Right, that doesn't feel like it's Groundhog every day once that structure is in place, but you never deviate. Where does that? It's high performing athletes. You see this a lot in with this kind of mentality. You see it in highly successful people in any endeavor. Military is this idea of structure and routine. Where does that come from for you? What kind of pushes you that way? Where do you, either in your personal life, how you grew up, anything that kind of gave you that perspective?
I've just always been pretty structured when it comes to work, because I don't like chaos. I've noticed, when we have fire drills or all this stuff, and it's like knee jerking, and you get something in your mind to get something done. And then, there's somebody throws a wrench in it. It's hard. And some people, I always say, they can't wrap their heads around multiple balls getting thrown at them. They can't juggle the playing field. And so for me, I've always tried to take the noise away from my team and just keep them as consistent as possible. So, and I'll juggle all of the noise that's coming in and try to filter it for them. And I've succeeded better under supervisors who do the same to me. Try to, take all the noise out, let us really focus. And I've just always been like that all the way through school, just trying to be as consistent as possible and just trying to, eliminate the noise in the background and just push forward with the goal, whether it was when I was going to school or, through my career. And I think I'm more successful when I can juggle the noise better. I can tell when there's times in my career where there's too much noise and I got to step back, breathe, and try to filter it. But I think most people just in life can't juggle multiple things getting thrown at them. And a store manager has evolved just in the 10 years that I've been a store manager. And I find the stores that struggle are just because they're allowing too much things to get thrown at them. And instead of throwing it back or, balancing it better or assigning it out, they're trying to, juggle all these balls at the same time. They're not developing anybody. So
Candace,
yes.
I know from our previous conversation, we had a lot of conversations around all of the extra things that you do while you're working and how it kind of reinvigorates you. Where do you find that passion and how do you keep nurturing that? Because I've noticed, especially as I'm getting older, naps sound great and, just fewer tasks to kind of balance around. But it's always nice to hear from someone who has that passion and wants to continue driving after that. So can you share a little bit about that?
So my mind is always constantly moving. So I'm always thinking about, we got new initiatives coming out right now, the apparel, RFID or VizPix coming. So my mind's constantly always moving about how I'm going to help my team, but it's not about just helping my team. It's, picking up the phone and calling my peer and guiding them through something, or always being that phone a friend for some of them when they're in a tight situation, or, hey, what would you do? That kind of stuff, just because then I know I'm being helpful. A lot of times, some of the darkest parts of my career was when I didn't have somebody I could call. Sometimes it's not, you don't always want to call your boss and bounce something off of them, or, hey, I'm in this situation. How would you handle it? Or what are you doing with this kind of situation? And I always say, how do I see my way out of a box? Some people are just hitting all four sides and they never get out. So I always think of how do I help everybody else be successful? Because when they're successful, I'm successful. When we're all successful, obviously I want my market manager to be successful. And so it's like that's something is helping others, being that phone a friend and kind of, I've stepped in a lot of potholes over my career, and I've had somebody that's been there to help pick me up and get me out. And sometimes that sounding board when you're, hey, I don't know what to do. So usually I have a solution, or I've done something to try every situation, or if not, I can always direct people in to where to go and who to call. Those are just something, I enjoy going and helping them see. Sometimes we get in silos in these stores, or we do the same thing so much that we don't see around. So, I try to help everybody I can and try to be that voice of reason, I guess.
That's great.
People who are great at what they do doesn't happen with just pure luck, or they just fell into it. It is a conscious effort to get better each and every day. And to do the right thing. And so congratulations on becoming Store Manager of the Year. It's clearly well-deserved.
Thank you.
Yes.
You should feel proud of that. Nobody can ever take it away from you. You got it. And I'm sure you'll do great as you continue your career. But thank you for what you're doing. You're clearly making a difference in your team, in your community. And it sounds like with your family as well, which is fantastic. So thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Candace.